Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Ming. It's very nice to see some of you again, and also to see some of the new faces here on my screen. Today this will be actually the 13th webinar. Um, we have been running this for the last 3 months, and I believe this has been providing a lot of information, a lot of advice for many of the high school students in Oakville, in Ontario, and actually in many other parts of Canada as well. So today we have two guests, Katherine. Katherine is over there. Hi, Katherine.
Hello.
And also Kevin.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. They all come from a very beautiful province. Okay, so I'll just give a very quick introduction about both of them, and then we'll get started. But actually, before that, I would like to know who want to start first. Well, sometimes we say ladies first, and sometimes we say gentlemen have to come first. So, what about you? Who want to go?
I don't mind either.
Yeah. I don't really care either.
Okay, then let's follow the tradition. Okay, ladies first. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's start with Katherine. Katherine, this woman is studying at UBC, as what we already put into our flyer. And she's originally from Alberta. And actually, in her grade 12 years, he's the winner of the Governor's General Bronze Medal in grade 12. And he has been applying for a few universities and got scholarships and entrance scholarships over to UBC, University of Alberta, and the McGill University. Well, all top universities in Canada. And of course, she eventually chose UBC for a very interesting program called Science One. I believe she can talk a little bit more about that afterwards. I think that's really interesting. Okay, so that's a little bit about Katherine, and I will give the mic, basically this room, to Katherine. So now, Katherine, go ahead.
Okay. So like Ming said, I am Katherine Lee. I go to UBC. I'm currently entering my second year with a major in chemical biology. There's my email there. If any future questions come up, I'll also be putting it on the last slide. So first, a little bit about me. So I'm Chinese Canadian, and I was born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta. Throughout high school, my academic interests mostly lied in the sciences, so chemistry, biology, physics, math, and that's what I ended up going into in university. So like I said before, currently attending UBC, a major in chemical biology, which is different from biochemistry. It's actually just a combined major in chemistry and biology. So just a little bit about high school. I attended Strathcona High School for grades 10 to 12. In grade 10, I took a full AP course load, but with AP, you can drop a few. So I ended up finishing AP classes in biology, European history, calculus BC, and chemistry. I took all of those AP exams and surprisingly got a 5 on all of them. And as also said before, I graduated with 98% as valedictorian and won the Governor General Bronze Medal and several other awards. Throughout high school, I didn't really know what subject I liked, which made my decisions for university a bit difficult because I didn't know what science I wanted to go into. So in my grade 12 year, that's when you begin to apply. I decided to focus on Canadian universities. This is mostly because of my own criteria, which where my top 3 was my intended major and interests. As much as you are applying to a university, you are applying to a faculty and a department. And even if the university is top ranked, the department, say for biology, may be a bit lower than another university whose overall rank might be lower than that first university. So you really want to check your department ranks too, if that's what you're interested in. Also expenses and distance. I knew I wanted to be out of province, but I didn't want to be super far away from home. And Upswing Academy is Toronto based, and I did not apply for U of T, which was just because of the expenses and it was a bit too far. And I knew even if I applied, I wouldn't accept, so I didn't really want to waste the $100 most applications ask you for. So I chose UBC, McGill, and the University of Alberta. I applied to all three of these universities in September to November, which is early admissions. This was also because lots of this entrance scholarship deadlines were in December, so you had to get your application in before them, before December. And that's one of my big tips for the application process if you're in grade 11 or going into grade 12, is that you want to always check your deadlines. Like they often can postpone deadlines. I know some scholarship deadlines were continuously postponed. Sometimes they were shockingly early. So it's really important to keep a list of the deadlines and keep the list updated. So the application process. So between all universities, they will ask for similar things. If you're applying for early admissions, they will ask for your grade 11 grades and whatever grade 12 grades you have at that point, which is usually an interim report in term 1. And then you will have to continuously update those grade 12 grades as you finish your grade 12 courses and move on to term 2. Some universities will ask for a transcript maybe mid-term 2. I know UBC did, and to do that, I just printed off a transcript, got it signed and printed by my high school, and then I just scanned and sent it off. Not all universities ask for this though. And then of course they ask for the basic personal information, which is just your name, your birthday, your citizenship, etc., etc. The big difference is that UBC has a personal profile. The other two universities, you just have to send in your grades, some personal information, and that's all you do for the application process. UBC has you write kind of short mini essays to prompts, and they also want you to give information about your extracurricular and provide 2 references. Now, UBC does weigh the personal profile and the grades an equal amount, so you don't want to slack off on either of them. People tend to think the personal profile is something that's worth less than their grades, but it can really make or break your application. And since UBC has this personal profile, you did not have to write a separate scholarship application. Once you apply to UBC, you were before December 1st, you were automatically qualified for any entrance scholarships. The University of Alberta and McGill University, however, had no essay for the university application, but if you wanted any entrance scholarships, you did have to write a separate scholarship application, which was typically an essay, and you would have to list some references. I was able to get awards and scholarships from all 3 universities. So I'll give some essay tips. The first one is you want to be real, because universities read thousands of essays every year. And if you just write about your extracurriculars, maybe the sports you do, you don't stand out. Like that's kind of the harsh reality of it. Unless you created a small business or a successful charity, just writing your extracurriculars, like everyone has extracurriculars. So, and for some people, like I myself didn't do anything in high school but study. So my extracurriculars were really lame. But I guess I made up for that in a more interesting essay. I was really critical about myself, which sounds bad, but I kind of talked about my flaws and how that's held me back, but how I've been learning from those flaws. So kind of forming my essays in this continuous growth journey like style, which got me some awards, so I clearly didn't screw that one up. Also, my second tip is that you want to start early. I did not do that. I crammed a lot of my essays, which in hindsight was a very bad idea. And a part of that was because I didn't check my deadline. So check your deadlines. And then my final tip is always get a teacher or a friend to read it over. Your parents might be a bit biased. You obviously are biased. So getting a third person to read it will definitely help with your essay. After all my applications were done in first term, I ended up choosing my university a bit later, very close to the acceptance deadline. And I chose UBC. And this was based off my criteria. Distance, it was out of province, but not super far away. Tuition was standard for Canada, about 7K to 8K, depending on program. I did get an award from UBC. And most importantly, since I didn't know what I want to do, UBC was the best choice. This is because University of Alberta and McGill, I don't quite know about U of T, make you choose your major in first year, which since I didn't know what I want to do, that caused a lot of stress. However, for UBC Science, you choose your major in second year, meaning all science students take the same standard science courses with some differences. So if you don't know what you want to do, that's really nice. If you do know what you want to do, you might feel like you're wasting your first year, but it worked for me. Also, it was based on the deadlines of other universities. Another very important deadline you should keep a note of is course selection deadline. The University of Alberta's course selection was April 1st, while their deadline to accept admission was in early June, late May, meaning that when April 1st rolled around, I didn't accept any university yet. So if I did accept University of Alberta, I would have very minimal course selection, which is obviously a turnoff. So I ended up just not choosing University of Alberta. So another important reason why you should always check your deadlines. And then finally, I chose UBC because there was a very interesting first year science program called Science 1. So Science 1 is an interdisciplinary first year program. You have standardized timetables and you're constantly with the same 80 or so classmates with about 7 dedicated professors. This is a huge advantage in first year because many first year science classes can get up to 300 people, meaning that like for the professor, if you're interested in things like networking, you're just a nameless face in the crowd. But with Science 1, I got to know my professors and my classmates very well. We would often just talk, we wouldn't even have to talk about school related things. So it was very nice. You really get to build real relationships with your professors that are beneficial down the road. Obviously, it's also much easier to make friends because you're stuck with the same 80 people. However, this is a really vigorous course. It's not easy. It's about an honors level first year course, meaning that your workload is very heavy. You learn a lot of things that first year students, typical science first year students don't. And you also have to manage 2 self-directed research projects in term 1 in term 1 and 1 in term 2, along with all your labs and extra tutorials. So it's a lot. But I think it's worth it because as much as the learning curve was very large in first year, all the Science 1 alumni have stated that their transition to second year was much, much easier than their peers. And also, Science 1 meets the prerequisites for every second year UBC specialization. So you don't have to go through the trouble of planning a complete schedule. You just have to apply for Science 1, which needs a separate application and a written essay around April to May of your starting school year. And then you're good to go for any second year major specialization, which was really beneficial for someone like me who did not know what they wanted to do. It also gives you a very different look at science than the typical first year gets, which is really nice. And through this program, I was able to narrow down my major. I thought I liked physics and math, and then I did realize I did not like physics and math. So I really recommend Science 1. Big tip, lower your expectations. I left high school with a 98%. I got 69% on my second bio quiz of the year in Science 1. So lower your expectations. So overall though, my first year experience was really great. There are big transitions. University goes quick. What you cover in a month in high school can be done in 1 to 3 classes. For example, what took me a month and a half to learn in high school, we covered in 1 class, and then we had a quiz on it the next week. So you don't have time to bring over all your study habits from high school. One of the biggest tips almost all the second years gave me when I was in first year was you have to learn to prioritize. You have to learn that if you have a quiz in the same week as you do a midterm, sometimes you just can't study for that quiz. And that's okay, because the midterm is going to be worth 30%, while the quiz might be one quiz out of 5, and all those quizzes together might only be worth 5%. You have to learn to cut your losses, because time management is so important. Studying, as important as studying is, you have to take time for yourself. I often took Fridays off because you're not gonna get through university if you only study. If you only study, it creates a really depressing university experience, because university is what you make of it. If you want it to be fun, you have to make time for it to be fun. You also have to, if you're moving out of province, you have to make time for yourself, to take care of yourself, your living space, to cook, if that's what you're doing, to clean. It can be difficult. I recommend writing a schedule, especially during busy weeks, such as finals weeks or midterm week. And also just to always, like, my biggest emphasis is take time off for yourself. I know many of you were probably excellent students at high school who have studied a lot. In university, you have to learn to make time for yourself, to just not study sometimes, because sometimes studying just won't happen. Like, you're not going to study well if you haven't taken a break. It's just unproductive at that point. But if you do that, there'll be stressful times. Midterm week, finals week suck, but there'll also be very fun times. I explored campus a lot. UBC has a nice beach. I went out a lot with friends. Sometimes we would go out to eat McDonald's at midnight. So it really is what you make of it. My overall first year experience was great. I don't regret any of it, despite it being cut short due to this pandemic. And if you're going into university this year, it might be a bit difficult because everything is online, but I hope that you'll be proactive in making friends, because I could not get through my first year without my friends. And that when we are allowed to go on campus for classes, just to make the most of it. So thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, I would be very happy to answer them to the best of my ability. If any future questions come up, you can email me at the email on the screen. Also to note, if you're interested in Science 1, I'm actually part of the Science 1 survivors. I'm the secretary of that club, which are Science 1 alumni that help the first year incoming Science 1 students. So I would be very happy to help you with any inquiries about Science 1, or to direct you to people who can help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine. I just noticed, actually, there's a message from Annie, who said, I just got into the Science 1 program this year. Anyone?
Oh, congratulations. I think I might have seen you around.
Okay, I'm sure she had a lot of questions for you. Okay, thank you for that. I think it's interesting, like, we've been running this kind of program for a few months, and I noticed almost every single one mentioned about time management.
Yes, and it's very important.
I mean, you mentioned about time management in different areas. You talk about check your deadline. That's time management. You talk about prioritize. That's time management. You talk about have your own schedule, right? And you also talk about keeping a balance of learning and study and life. I mean, a normal 18, 19, 20 years old and college and university classmates and clubs and all that kind of life. It's very important. I think that's very interesting. That's very important. A balanced life. We have to live in the moment, right? Okay, and then enjoy all kinds of the learning as well as life on campus. Good, good. Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think the time management is really the key. I heard it so many times. I believe our audience have heard it so many times. Yeah.
I think it's especially important if you're moving out of province or out of your house, because you realize how much your parents do for you. And also, as much as university is studying, you're spending 4 years there. So you should definitely have some fun along with the studying. you don't want to waste 4 years, of
Yeah,
course. So
that's
that's
true.
my personal opinion.
I have to enjoy, yeah, as well. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, actually, I mean, there's another thing you mentioned very important. I'm not sure
Mm,
our audience got that. It's really about managing your expectation. That's really
yes.
related to managing your anxieties. I mean, facing the challenges when you go to university. You were
Mhm.
talking about you were getting like 80s, right, for all subjects, and then when you get
Yeah.
into university, you were getting what, something around 60 something.
Yeah,
That's like,
I've
oh my god.
once I got to university, I've gotten grades from 90 above 90 to percent to like 50%. Like sometimes it just happens. It doesn't mean you're a bad student. University just gets to all of us.
And
Yeah, and don't panic.
yeah, yeah.
Biggest thing, don't panic.
Yeah,
Um,
especially because like, I mean, all your classmates probably have the same grades as you. I mean,
yes,
high school,
yes, especially in Science 1. Science 1 has excellent students, and to Annie in the chat, don't worry, Science 1 gets curved, which is nice. And everyone, I don't think I know a single person in Science 1 who has not gotten at least one quiz or exam that was like below 60%. So it doesn't mean you're a bad student or you
Mm.
get kicked out of a program if your marks are too low. For Science 1, no, unless you've completely failed the program, but that's the case for all first year programs. If you fail, you do have to retake the course. If your mark is low enough, they might put you on, I forget what it's called, but they'll give you a warning, some kind of warning, but they won't kick you out of university. I went into university thinking if I got bad marks, I'd get kicked out in my first year, but no, that doesn't happen. That does not happen. And Science 1 professors, if that's what you're interested in, will do everything they can to help you pass the course. So getting kicked out is not something you have to worry about.
Yeah. Kicking out is not an option. No.
You guys will all make it to second year. Mark
Okay,
range
so
that
let's take more questions for the next part. Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's move on to Kevin. Okay. So so Kevin also from Alberta, and he has an average of 94 plus, and he has finished all the IB programs. He's also the winner of math competitions and hackathon awards. And he has got applications from University of Toronto, Alberta, Waterloo. And now he's studying at Waterloo second year in computer engineering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, Kevin, the room is yours.
Okay. Yeah. So can you guys see my presentation? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as Ming mentioned, I currently go to the University of Waterloo, and I just completed my first year. So a little bit about me. I went to Old Scone Academic for high school in Edmonton, Alberta, and I completed the full IB program. So I'm in computer engineering, the co-op program at the University of Waterloo, and I just finished my first year. So in my first year, I've completed. Sorry, that's a typo. It should be 2 study terms and 1 co-op term. So a co-op term is basically just like an internship for 4 months with like whichever company. So in terms of my high school achievements and standings, so because I completed the full IB program, I applied to university with both my Alberta education marks, which are my typical school marks, as well as my IB marks. So my midterm average, which I applied with in my grade 12 year, was around 94%, and my predicted IB score was a score of 37, excluding the 3 points that you get from like TOK and extended essay, which they don't count. So the midterm school average was determined by 5 subjects for the program I was applying to, which was engineering, and that is English, which is always required for, I'm pretty sure, every program. And then for me personally, it was Math 30, which was your typical, I guess, math course. And then it was Calculus, which was Math 31 in Alberta, Physics 30, and Chem 30, which is an engineering, which are engineering requirements. And then, of course, depending on which program and university you apply to, the competitive average will be different for each program, and they should be listed on university sites. So for my program personally, I think it was around like the low 90 mark. And yeah, so other important achievements in high school include top mark awards. So I also won a couple hackathons at the University of Alberta when I was in high school, and also awards from math and programming contests, especially those from Waterloo, were really important. And so why exactly did I choose Waterloo? So I applied to U of A engineering, University of Waterloo computer engineering, and University of Toronto engineering. So I guess it's kind of evident that I'm kind of interested in engineering. Um, but yeah, so I chose Waterloo because, well, first of all, it is one of the top universities in Canada for engineering and computer science. And for me, I already knew kind of what I was interested in and what I wanted to do, which was really going to be like a technical field. And so, um, Waterloo is really, I guess, known for their computer science and engineering faculties. So that was one thing. That was one of the reasons why I chose Waterloo. Addition to that, Waterloo has a really good co-op program, and so this means that it has one of the highest employment rates when it comes to finding internships for first year, second years, etc. And I think the ability to find internships during like stuff during summers is really important because like once you leave university, you're not going to be writing exams. You're going to be working like in the real world, and being able to find work experience while you're in university is going to be really important to not just build your resume, but also give you, I guess, a real taste of the real world. And then um, also the last reason I guess I chose Waterloo was because I did not have to take like 1 year of like general engineering. So at the University of Alberta, you have to take like during your first year, you have to take engineering, and then you can, I guess, specialize in second year. And U of T has options to specialize in the first year, but they also kind of have general. And I already knew kind of what I wanted to do, so I'm able to specialize first year immediately, going to Waterloo, and that's also one of the reasons why I chose to go to Waterloo. And so a little bit about my program. So the courses in my program are focused around mathematics, physics, computer science, and computer science can include like stuff like programming and also like digital circuits and hardware, especially since it's an engineering major, which is not just like software based. Um, More details about my program can be found on the Waterloo site. Courses like English and communication and engineering ethics stuffs are also required for the program. So similar to Katherine, my program has a cohort, which means that essentially you're going to be with the same people for the next 5 years of study. So yeah, my program is 5 years long, so it's kind of rough. So yeah, you're going to be stuck with the same people for the next 5 years, which I think will be really helpful. You're going to build like a pretty tight group of friends, especially, and everyone in the program is going to be really helpful. Like everyone will be stressed at times. Everyone will be there to help each other. Like you guys are all going through the same things, and it's going to be the same people for 5 years. So yeah, it's a really big benefit. And in terms of like your schedule, so like most engineering, I guess, uh, universities and courses, engineering at the University of Waterloo is always going to be 6 courses every study term. And so in these 6 courses, you're going to have multiple lab courses. So these labs, you're going to have around like 2 to 3 labs every like 1 or 2 weeks. And these labs for my program personally can include like stuff that you guys do in high school, like dropping like a ball off a table, or like stuff like digital circuits, hardware, and new technology, and messing around with like new technologies like circuits and stuff like that. And then so just as I mentioned before, the program is a total of 5 years. So 5 years is 15 terms, and also there's not going to be any summers, which sucks, but you know, university. Um, two of two of the 5 years will be done um, with co-ops and internships. So that means that even though it seems like you're gonna have like 5 years of school, really 2 of those years are like work terms or like working years. So it's really like 3 years of school, but not really, but like 3 years of school at the same time. Um, so yeah, the work terms and study terms are usually split apart. So that way students don't have to do like 3 years of school in a row, which would be really rough. So the work term is often used as like because there's no like homework when you're working or I guess doing an internship, it's usually seen as like your break almost. So I really do suggest that if you do end up going into the co-op program at the University of Waterloo, really enjoy your work terms. So just a little bit more in depth about I guess Waterloo's co-op system, since I think that's a big reason as to why people go there. Um, Co-op students are split into like something called streams, and depending on your stream, you can have a work term while maybe like some of your friends have like a study term or something, so that you guys will be like off stream. So even though you guys go to the same university, you guys might not even see each other for like 5 years, which can be kind of scary, but it's a great way to meet new people at least. So for me personally, I'm in stream 4, which means that I cycle 4 months of study followed by 4 months of work. So in September of 2019, I had my first study term. And then in January, instead of having another study term like other universities, I had my first internship. And then I actually just finished my second study term like a couple weeks ago. And so how Waterloo, I guess, gives their students these co-op opportunities is through a site called Waterloo Works. And Waterloo Works basically contains thousands of jobs which students can apply to during their study term, right before like the term that they're working. And just something to keep in mind that these jobs and internships are not guaranteed. So just because you get into like Waterloo and the program, it does not mean that you're going to be able to find a job. These jobs are still based on merit. So I do highly recommend that if you're in high school and you're going to university next year or something, or you're in grade 11 and you have a couple summers left before you go into a program with no summers, definitely spend your summer, I guess, improving your resume. That's really important. Yeah, but yeah, these jobs are definitely still based on merit. Like definitely still enjoy your summers, but just keep in mind that you're not going to be guaranteed a job. And every year there are, even though the employment rates are like pretty high, like there definitely are students without jobs. And honestly, like if you don't get a job maybe during your first year, like that is totally fine. Like how many like students do you know are working like first year, right? So don't hit yourself too hard. Definitely maybe use it as a lesson to maybe, I guess, pick things up a little bit. But at the same time, if you don't find a job, the term is kind of spent as like a summer for other universities. So you're not on for the majority of programs like these, you're stuck in your cohort. So which means that while others are working, you can't be studying, or else you guys would be, I guess, not in the same study term anymore. So I guess you'd have summer, and sometimes like a little bit of 4 month break can be nice, especially when you're in like a five-year long program. And just something to keep in mind that there's a lot of interview, cover letter, and resume help when you're trying to search for jobs, both online and on campus. Well, not on campus right now, but usually there's a lot of help on campus, and you're always gonna have people in your class who are like super functional. Like don't go to a university expecting to be like the top. Maybe you are the top, but there are always people around you who are gonna be smarter than you. Well, not smarter than you. Maybe like just I guess more prepared than you are, and use like those people are always going to be willing to help. And I say like there are a lot of people in my class that are like working at like these really big companies first year, and even though like it makes me feel like kind of bad about myself, like they're really like nice people, and they're always open to help me with my resumes and stuff, and it's always really nice. So yeah, definitely seek help during your term when you're looking for jobs. And so how to prepare and apply for the um, University of Waterloo. So you have to fill out something called the OUAC, which you need to do for all Ontario universities. And so this is basically just kind of like the first step, which is just basically selecting the university that you want to apply to, select which program and faculty that you want to apply to, and how many applications per faculty is depending on the university. So for Waterloo Engineering, I was allowed my first choice, which was computer engineering, followed by my, I guess, backup choice, which they would consider me for if I did not get into my first choice. So once you've applied through the OUAC, Waterloo will send you an email, and it will lead you to creating your Quest account. So this is a two-part application. So similar to a lot of other universities, they don't want to just look at your grades. They want to look at what you've done. So part one, obviously, like grades, stuff like your IB marks, your school marks, basic stuff where you just upload documents. So that's worth 50% of your application. And then part two is the admission information form, which is where you're going to be showing the university all the other things that you do. So this can be, the first part will be like general questions, which is like, why are you choosing Waterloo? Like, why are you applying to the faculty? Your typical, I guess, questions that they would ask. And then they would ask for like extracurriculars. So this is where you put stuff like volunteering, work experience. And like, as Katherine mentioned, like everyone is going to have like volunteered or something somewhere. And like, you have to find ways to stand out in the crowd, and telling them that you like volunteer somewhere for like the summer is not very like, it's not going to be something that stands out. And like, I get that like in high school, like there's not much that you can do really, but try your best to like stand out, but also like be honest. Don't exaggerate anything, don't make things up, because that might like bite you in the butt later. But yeah, so after you list your extracurricular stuff, really focus on like why you think like that specific extracurricular is like important. I think it's better to, it's not really like as much like, sure, like what you do is important, but like what more important, like what you learn from it. So achievements, rewards, and notable placements in like Waterloo or other contests. So this for computer engineering specifically, this can refer to like anything that is related to engineering. So it can be like physics contests, math contests, programming contests, anything like that, or other big things like the hackathons and stuff. Like I know in high school, like you can apply to like hackathons hosted by the University of Alberta, and like you're not always gonna win, obviously, like you're competing with like university students, but like even the experience is nice to have, and could really give you like extra points on the AIF. So then at the end, after like your extracurriculars and achievements and stuff, it might ask some other questions depending on your faculty. So for me personally, it was any programming experience I have, as well as a math reference. So for my math reference, I did end up using my math teacher, who I guess supervised me while I did like a bunch of math contests and other stuff like that. And like something like to keep in mind is that both parts are weighted equally. So even though like your grades might not be the best or something, like it doesn't mean that you can't get in. And then it's same way other way around. Even though your grades are amazing, it also doesn't guarantee that you're going to get in. So like you have to keep both of these parts in mind as they are weighted equally. So definitely don't like Katherine said, don't leave your AIF till like the last day before the deadline's due. Proofread it. Like grammar mistakes are like just a turnoff for like whoever's reading it. It's just like simple things like that. Make sure you seem professional, and that like you put in the effort into your AIF. And then so after your application, the status of your application will be shown on Quest. So I guess depending on when they review your application, you'll know whether or not you got into your program or not, and it will be shown on Quest. Um, so after getting into the program, a lot of people ask me like will I get like rejected after if my grades fall, and that is dependent on the faculty that you're applying to. So conditional acceptance is depending on either the school grades that you applied with or the IB marks. So for me personally, my conditional acceptance was based off of my IB marks. So Waterloo weighted my IB marks more heavily, and my conditional acceptance was scoring at least 32 points, excluding the TOK and extended essay marks. And so once you fulfill that, then you're, I guess, guaranteed into the faculty. So just because you got in your grade 12 year, do not slack off towards the end of the year if you're not already, if you're still, if you're in like grade 11 or something right now. Do not slack off. Continue working hard because you don't want to have your conditional acceptance taken away for sure. So these are I guess for my first year experience, there are like a lot of differences between high school and uni for sure. So the first thing is classes are a lot more content heavy and fast paced, and concepts are not just listen to the teacher and I understand it anymore. So after the first time you hear about or you learn about something in class, like oftentimes like especially in engineering, you're gonna have like 6-7 classes a day, and so like there's no way you're gonna understand and remember everything. And so after school, like a lot of my time is spent studying and reviewing the day's content, and this for me was really important because like falling behind in university is rough, because the second that you fall behind in a course, the next week you don't even know what's happened in the previous week, and then the next week you don't understand anything, and then it just becomes a snowballing effect. So my biggest advice to you is do not fall behind. Stay on top of things. If there's a concept that you do not understand, don't leave it to like the day before the exam thinking that you're gonna like understand it the day before, because that's probably not gonna happen. Seek help like as soon as possible, and make sure that every week you're caught up with the class's content. And I think this is especially important for online school, where lectures are mostly just online or usually not even live and through like YouTube videos and stuff. Like it's a lot harder to keep up with your schoolwork if you're not even at school because everything's online. So yeah, definitely keep on top of your classes every single week. And another thing for me personally that I noticed in university is that there aren't as many like assignments, and practice in terms of like solving problems and stuff are often optional. So it's not like professors are going to run around chasing you for like homework or anything. Like everything is really up to you, like whether or not you want to do practice. So like Katherine said, like prioritize, like know what you need to work on, know what's worth more, and know what is more important for you to work on. Because honestly, like in university, there like practice is like most of the time optional, and you do not have to do it if you don't have to. So if like a quiz is not worth that much, then and you have other like more important things to do, then just focus on the things that are worth more. In terms of assignments in my program, they're mostly just labs, and that's basically like all the homework that there is, and like maybe a couple essays in the English classes. So yeah, the biggest challenges for me personally was that material no longer came quickly. So I had to spend a lot of time understanding concepts and reviewing. So I know like a lot of people in high school, and this might apply to you guys too, like your teacher would just hand you out like some notes to go over in class. You go home, you read through it once, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then you do the quiz, you get 100%, and then yeah, like life's good in high school. And then see, like that doesn't work anymore in uni. Like the content is really fast paced. So yeah. And another challenge for me was that my first co-op and internship was really difficult. especially I did not have work experience prior, and the onboarding phase of the internship was really difficult, and it's gonna feel really stressful for the first time for many people, especially like doing interviews. Like I still feel like really nervous doing interviews and stuff like that. So definitely feel use the resources that you're provided like on campus when if you do end up, if you are allowed to go on campus like sometime, and use those resources well, and really make sure you're prepared for, I guess, the internships if you are going to be in the co-op program. And my tips are to study in a group, have like a close, tight study group. Learning with friends is a lot easier than learning by yourself. I think the easiest way to know whether or not you really understand something is your ability to explain it to someone else. So having others explain things to you and vice versa is really important for your understanding of concepts. And always attend your lectures. So do not skip lectures, whether that is live or online, and make sure you go to office hours because those are really useful. And yeah, that is everything.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, it's a huge, I mean, in terms of learning, the experience would be quite different from high school, between high school and the university. So basically, high school is still the teacher kind of still, even though, I mean, not so much in Canada, I mean, comparing with China. I mean, teachers still kind of pushing you, still asking, okay, the deadline. And the university professor is like, okay, that's the deadline, and that's it. And it's for you to really to keep up your time and date and make sure that you deliver things before deadline, right? Yeah, that's quite a lot of difference. Okay. Okay, so before I give the opportunity for everyone else to ask question, I have one question for both of you. Have you ever just watched the movie, the latest movie from Nolan, The Tenant? No?
No.
No? Wow, oh, mate. Okay, I mean, for an audience, just for you, I watched it yesterday. It is must go. If you love science fiction, if you love Nolan type of very, I mean, all full of puzzle. I mean, movie like all puzzles, like a jigsaw puzzle, right? So basically, in that movie, so all talking about time travel. So basically, it's like going back in time. So it's different from like other time travel movie. Basically, get a car or get anything, just go back to the past. This one is if you go to the back, you go to the past. It's actually you're moving backwards. So it's just like the timeline going one direction, or you go travel back in time, you're moving in all opposite directions. So that's somehow it's kind of interesting, okay? So my question for you is, if you get a chance to use that machine to go time travel, go back and track yourself, okay? Is there anything in your, I mean, university application, your high school, if there's anything you want to change or you want to fix, if you're given that opportunity, would you go for a different university? Or if you do something different, then you may have go for a different major. Maybe there's something you would do differently. What would you do if you are given that power?
Would you like to answer first, Kevin?
Anyone?
Sure. So personally, definitely stop procrastinating. That is probably like the biggest thing, like terrible time management, especially from like bad practices from high school. And like I mentioned in my presentation, not to do like your university applications like the day before, but of course I did that, so you know. And just like other small things during the term, like I guess from high school, like there was never like a need for me to ask for help, and then in university that obviously changed. And like I think something that I'd go back and change was definitely like being more willing to ask for help. I think that's something that you just have to accept that you're gonna need help. Yeah.
I think for me, I guess mine's a bit different. I'm very satisfied with my university, despite some low grades, but the occasional low grade. But some similar things. I fell behind a few times, snowball, took a whole weekend to catch up. Wish I didn't do that. In high school, I was the kind of student that ask a ton of questions, go home, study for 8 hours a day, every little quiz I had to study for several hours a day. I wish I didn't do that and instead participated in more extracurriculars. I found that my university applications were very lacking in interesting extracurriculars. So I do wish I took on a bit more extracurriculars. Also in first year, I guess I would also wish I joined maybe a club or did some more volunteering in first year.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think Katherine, then that probably for you, why you brought this up about the balancing. I think that's something you feel like, okay, yeah, there's something missing, the club, the extracurricular. Yeah, okay. And also, Kevin, I think you mentioned a very important part, talking about asking for help. I think that's something many of us, I mean, including me, sometimes we feel like, why I didn't need to ask for help? I'm good. I should just do it. I should just do it myself. But I mean, in many situations, it's actually either ask for help or you're just going to sink.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no matter in studying, university, high school, or even in your career in the future. So we definitely need to ask for help. If we know that we are in trouble, we definitely need to ask for help. And I'm sure most of the time there'll be someone going to help us. It's just that we need to ask for it. Especially when you are in the workplace, people are just all rushing. They don't know that you have problems, and they don't know whether they should help you or not. So if you are in trouble, if any of you, our audience are in trouble, you have any questions, ask the question and ask for help. That's very important. That's very practical advice from Kevin. Yeah, I like that. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so now let's answer questions from our audience. Okay, I believe we answered a few at the very beginning from this Sherry, right? Sherry, okay, so Katherine already answered that. The acceptance was around 80 plus, okay. Okay, let's move on to the next question. This is for Kevin. How would you recommend improving resumes?
Okay, yeah. So depending on I guess what you want to intern with, I guess your experience, the value of experience will vary. So for me personally, I'm always looking to have internships at involving like software development. So I really want to, I guess, work on personal side projects, have any sort of like work experience. Work experience is really important for employers because they know that you have already been exposed to like that environment. And so it really does depend on like what exactly you want to work an intern for. But yeah, for me personally, definitely side projects, learning code. I think for me personally, like interning at like software development places, like coding is something that is really self-driven. Like you have to learn it by yourself for the most part. So depending on what you want to do, like definitely try and I guess go above and beyond what you're just learning in class and try and go out of your way to seek, I guess, experience in the field that you want to work for.
Okay. Yeah, I think in general, improving resume basically is really, first of all, we need to get the things we have. And then when put into resume, focus on those things that will attract the reader. If you're applying for a co-op or you're applying for a job, always highlight the things that seems interesting to the employer, right? So that's something else is a general rule. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kevin, for that. Let's move on to the next one from Mofi. Okay. Talk a little bit about your extended essay.
Okay, yeah. So my extended essay was like your typical 4,000 words. I did my extended essay in physics because, well, personally, I like the subject, and of course, I think it is important that you do your extended essay in something that you actually enjoy, or else you're writing 4,000 words of just like torture. But yeah, so for my extended essay, I did it in physics, and for I guess sciences, it's essentially like a bigger lab report, like a really I guess, big lab report. So it involves a lab that you have to do, as well as you're basically asking a question, and then you're using and then you're, I guess, doing the experiment and then using those results and analyzing them like your typical lab. I think the criterion and stuff for like the extended essay are all online. I don't remember like off the top of my head, but really like most to do well in the extended essay, you really have to focus on like the analysis, especially for an extended essay in the sciences. And I know I didn't do my extended essay with an experiment personally, because my school was kind of limited in like equipment, especially being like so small. So I did use like data found by like other people online, which is fine, but really like it comes down to like the analysis, which is really important.
Okay, I hope that Mofi, that answered your question. And next one is from Alan. May I ask how to submit reference? Is it limited to one reference only?
Yeah, so for my program, I had to submit a math reference, and it is one reference only, and I think all they asked for was phone number and email. So you'll see like on your application that they want a reference, and then you just fill out their phone number and email. Make sure to ask your whoever you want to reference for you first, that they're willing to, like, which I'm sure they will, but make sure you ask them first. And yeah.
I'll just quickly interject. My reference experience was the same for UBC, but McGill actually wants reference letters if you're interested in applying for McGill. And they want you to format it a specific way. So make sure to talk to your references early and send them all the information you need.
Okay, thank you for that, Katherine. Okay, move on to Annie. The question from Annie. This is about online study nowadays. Yeah, we do a lot of online courses. How to stay focused during the online lectures and how to stay away from distractions.
If I may, Annie, since I believe you're going to Science 1, I did do the last couple months of Science 1 online. Science 1 has 4-hour lectures online, but most lectures have a 10-minute break in between them, which may seem really small, but it's definitely useful. Distraction-wise, if you can, don't study next to your bed or like in your bedroom, because you're just tempted to go back to sleep, especially if it's in the morning. My thing for studying online is if it's live lectures, actively take notes. It'll help you not like focus out. Just like take notes, do stuff. Don't just sit there and watch. If it's, sometimes I know some courses are moving to asynchronous things where you have to watch the lectures on your own time, and instead they'll give you some assignments. Watch them as if they were live lectures. Like, don't push them off into the evening. So if your class is scheduled for noon, watch the live lecture at noon, because from personal experience, you're not going to watch the lecture if you push it off. It's my biggest tip. And just like, my biggest tip is just make friends. Try to get a study group together. I know it's really hard online, but don't isolate yourself. And if Kevin has any more tips.
Yeah, so I think the don't isolate yourself definitely important. Like I know for my programs, like some of the smarter guys in my class like did some coding stuff that I don't really understand and made their own like Discord server and stuff. And like everyone is on that server, and like everyone is out, like you can ask questions whenever, and like we're able to like help each other, like especially like online school, like you're not going to be seeing your friends ever, and like making friends in the first place will be really difficult. And like a lot of the guys like I talked to on the Discord server, like I don't even think I've like met them because my class is like 150 people. So like, you know, like it's totally fine. Definitely like try and keep in touch with your classmates. For me personally, my second semester was from April, so I didn't even have a schedule. It was just like, yeah, these are your lectures, like do them. And then so for me, like I think allocate like a specific part of your day, then like make your own schedule for sure. if they don't already give you one. And for me, like my phone is like a terrible distraction for me. Like if like during the lecture, it's like it feels like, oh yeah, like I know this, and then I pick up my phone and then like I look back at my lecture and suddenly I don't know what's going on. Like it's terrible. So, and like for the rest of the lecture I'm lost. So like what I personally do is I load my lecture onto my computer, I close everything else, and then I throw my phone like 2 bedrooms away so that I'm too lazy to get out of my chair and get my phone. And yeah, that's kind of what I do to make sure I'm focused.
Yeah, okay. I think I have my own experience to share, even though it's like a few years back. I would say try to ask more questions. I mean, if especially it's an online lesson, I don't know. I mean, for undergrad level, how many students you have in a live session? If possible, ask yourself questions or just ask professor questions if there's a chance. I mean, keep those questions going, and then that kind of help you focus and also help you like really focus on the content and keep the thinking going. It's not just about taking notes, but it's about the thinking, the processing of the knowledge. I mean, that will be my experience. Okay, so that's for Katie. And next one. Okay, next one is about volunteering. We have a question from both Sherry and Katie. I think maybe Sherry, are you asking about volunteering in high school, quality versus quantity? And then I think next one, Katie's question is actually about university. So yeah, so if I get it right, Sherry? Yeah, right. Okay. So maybe Katherine or Kevin, you can give some thoughts about it?
Um, I personally think it's definitely quality over quantity. Like you're going by quantity, I'm assuming it's going to be these maybe week long, month long, few days kind of volunteer things, which look nice. But if you just have a bunch of different random, like you're volunteering at a school 1 month and then you're volunteering at a hospital the next, it becomes really hard to pinpoint what your purpose of volunteering is, and it makes it really clear that it looks like you're just doing it for the resume. But if you have this year-long volunteer experience at the hospital, it shows that you're dedicated. There's a specific interest in medicine or helping people, and I think it looks better to have something that's more long-term. And for Katie, for volunteering in university, so I think this is kind of a common misconception. It is as important in high school. In university, especially moving on to second year, UBC has a program called Work Learn, which is you can work, it's what it sounds like, you work and you learn. So it's not like co-op, but it's really nice to earn some money while working as a lab assistant or as a TA, moving on into further years. And if you're interested in anything like medical school, graduate school, law school, etc., you still need a good resume. So volunteering in university is still definitely very important.
Okay, what about Kevin? You have anything to add on to that about volunteering?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that it's definitely quality over quantity. I think for the majority of like applications, it will like you often like want to include like how long whatever like you volunteered for was. And like if you like say you like volunteered for like a week at like something, like they're gonna be like, oh, like I don't know, like you're gonna like leave questions in their head like, what did you really get from it, or like why did you stop volunteering there, like stuff like that you don't really want them to think about. Like you wanna make sure that they focus on what you actually got out of it. So if you volunteer for like a year at something that you're genuinely like interested and passionate about, then it becomes a lot more evident that you actually got something out of like your experience, I guess.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. To Katie and Sherry. Okay, let's move on to the next one from Rick Lee. So this is about, okay, this is a question for both of you. How long did it take you every day to study AP or IB in high school? Yeah, we talk about time management. Yeah, how did you manage your time to study? I mean, challenging AB and IB courses. And do you have any tips to learn these courses?
AP, AP is the way they taught it in Alberta. I don't know if it's any different in the other provinces, is that it just became additional course load already on top of the regular curriculum. And my study habits would basically be similar if it was a regular program. I also do this in university, but after a class, I like to kind of compile my own notes, kind of not relearn it, but make sure to review all the course material maybe the day of or the weekend. AP focuses heavily on AP exams. It's unlike IB where you have to work on a essay or an IA throughout the year. Everything in AP comes in these exams in May. For that, you want to start studying early. I always started maybe a month and a half before, just doing some general review. And as AP exams got closer, it became more heavy, like every day I would just kind of sit down and review, go over my notes, make additional notes, kind of just commit everything. And I guess like AP learning isn't that different from regular course learning in my experience. It might be harder. There's a bunch of YouTube videos, and honestly, AP exam week, I was just watching those YouTube videos right the night before the exam as last minute review, but don't use only that to study for the AP exam. Also do some pre-review stuff.
Yeah, so for the IB program, for me, it was kind of like similar. So it was really just like the same classes, but then like with like a couple extensions here and there on the topics that like you covered in like the normal curriculum. And like maybe at the end you have an extra like unit or two where you have like purely like the IB curriculum. And then so really like for those classes you just have like a little bit more of like workload and a little bit more to study for. And then I know that in the IB program in grade 11 you're going to be taking, I guess, a bunch of like 35 courses, which are essentially like university level courses. So those courses are a little bit rough, but they're not like that much more difficult than the Alberta Ed ones, or I guess wherever you're studying. And it's really just an extra like half a course. So like my study habits for those courses don't really change. It's just that because they are done in grade 11, you have the IB exams in grade 12. So definitely start reviewing what you learned in grade 11 before your before your IB exams, because there is like a lot of content, especially if you do pursue the full IB program. You're going to be doing like 6 IB subjects. So a little bit of content in each subject, like 6 times, it's going to be a lot of content. So definitely study like prior to the months prior to the IB exam, especially if you're using those marks for your university application. And with the IB program, there are also a lot of like internal assessments and essays that you have to write. And depending, like each subject has a different internal assessment. For sciences, it's just like once again, it's like a bigger lab report. For like the English and social and French, it's really just oral presentations plus essays and stuff like that. And so they're really just extensions of what you kind of already know. So my study habits for these do not really change. It's just I have to manage my time a little bit more wisely in the sense that I have more work to do. And like honestly, it is like it's good preparation for university. It's just extra work.
Okay, thank you. Next one from Alan. This is a question for Kevin. May I ask how the interview take place for both UT and University of Waterloo?
So I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're referring to like the application process. In terms of like the interview during the application process, they are optional, or for U of T, it is optional. For U Waterloo, I don't remember, but definitely do the interview. I think it's just like some general like interview questions. It's like tell me like why you want to like apply to this faculty, and then there's like one like I guess brain question at the end where it's like if like a bunch of guys like build a roof or something. But yeah, it's really just like something to get to know you, and I think there's really like no disadvantage of doing it. Like if you do poorly, like it's better than not doing it at all. Like personally, I would say. So definitely do it. I think you can probably look up when it will take place on the respective like sites of the universities. It'll probably also say on your application that there is an optional interview for you to do if you want to do it. And it will be done online. It's completely automated, so it's not like you're talking to someone like for real. You're really just talking to like a guy talking like a YouTube video or something. So
Okay, let me see if there's any other questions from our audience. Okay, I think we answered all of them. Yeah, just give you one more minute. If you still have any questions, you can share it in the group chat. Okay, so if there's no other questions, just make a quick advertisement for the next week. Next week, same time on Saturday at 8 p.m. We're having a webinar on how to write your application essays. So I know some of the universities in Canada requires your personal statement, essays, thesis, while others don't. And then some majority of the US university will probably ask for an essay in that sense. So we have a Professor Ming Fan, a PhD and Master of Education from the States. She will be talking about how to write a successful application essay. So I hope for those of you who are grade 11, grade 12, preparing for your university application, this is a great opportunity to polish your writing, polish your essay writing in particular. Okay, so let me just thank you to Katherine and thank you to Kevin for sharing your experience and your valuable tips and advice for all our audience. And thank you so much for your time and preparation and everything, okay?
Thank you for inviting.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so for all our audience, thank you so much for joining us every week at kind of night for you on Saturday. I hope to see you again next week soon. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah, you do.